Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of NetApp, welcome you all to the webinar on the recent trends emerging in apprenticeships and the way forward. The recent reports launched by NetApp on apprenticeship hiring outlook and stipend primer report brought out some fascinating trends emerging and also highlighted the area of improvement for effective implementation of apprenticeships. Pandemic did have an impact on apprenticeship engagement, but did not dampen the employer sentiments. There's a 33% net positive outlook for apprenticeship hiring, with 46% of the employers having intent to engage with apprenticeships. Major reasons cited are to offset the scarcity of workforce due to pandemic, increased demand for essential goods and services, and also to optimize the talent cost by investing in talent creation. 78% of the employers find apprenticeship highly productive. There's a gender neutrality in hiring apprenticeships, making way for women to take up apprenticeship in male-dominated job roles and the roles emerging in the servicing sectors, which continues to make progress in engaging with apprentices, though still behind the manufacturing sector. Even agriculture has emerged with a positive outlook for apprenticeship hiring. The pandemic and its impact has led to 54% of the employers to stay away or tone down their apprenticeship engagement. The most glaring shortcoming are that 26% of the employers did not see value in apprenticeship and 22% of the employers weren't aware of the system and mechanism for implementation, which states the gap between the intent and reality. There has been a linear growth in stipend paid out to apprentices, which stood at an average of 12,200 rupees in 2020 and is expected to have a steady increase of 3% in 2021. Interestingly, education and the e-com sectors have emerged as the high-paying sectors with 31 and 34% respectively, surpassing the manufacturing, the stipends which are being paid out in the manufacturing sector. Also, the comparison between pre-COVID and post-unlocking suggests that all sectors today are paying much higher stipends before the lockdown, except for hospitality and tourism. Some very, very startling statistics coming out of these reports. We will deliberate on these trends and the way forward to overcome the shortcomings in system and build on degree-linked apprenticeship under the new education policy, which sets the tone for apprenticeships in the 21st century. Today, we have with us a diverse panel comprising of Ms. Preeti Phansalkar, who's a senior HR leader and a leadership coach, Mr. Abhishek Jha, who's the Vice President HR for Writer Information, and Mr. MS Venkatesh, who is the HRO for DFM Foods Limited. Welcome all of you, and thank you for being part of this session to share your views on the trends in apprenticeship. We look forward to your insights and recommendation to make apprenticeships effective. Let's come straight to the questions here. My very first question to all of us is that the report highlights that there are still substantial chunk of organizations which are not aware about apprenticeship system and do not understand the systems, even if they are aware of. How can we overcome this to increase the adoption of apprenticeship? Preeti, maybe you would like to begin with.
Yeah. So I think, firstly, thank you for having me here. Personally, it is always energizing to talk to you or Alex or the team there. It's personally very, very energizing. So thank you so much for having me here. Yes, you're right. I mean, what the statistics that you talked of are absolutely true, and you're absolutely right in stating that a lot of companies are still not aware. See, the way I see it, there are a few things, not limited to, of course, which can be done itself. How, if of course, that is you, the organizations, and of course the government, if can conduct some kind of sessions or forums or summits. The summit that I remember last was in 2018 in Andhra Pradesh in Visakhapatnam. I mean, after that, I've not heard any such summits at such large intensity ever being done. So how, if there is a dialogue, Economic Times does a bit of this in very, very, again, short forms. But if something like that can be done in terms of of these programs. They're good. They give a lot of investment to begin with, short investment, but the long-term benefits are too. This is, of course, for all the CHROs, if they can compulsorily include this as part of their headcount budgets, or if they can include this as part of their training budgets, because you have to do both, hiring as well as training in terms of skill development, this will, go a long way. The third thing, which I think is leveraging, could you link the entire CSR? Government is giving a big time support today on how these things can be done. So where you could tie up with, let's say, NGOs or certain institutions and have partnerships with them, focusing predominantly on women development. In my experience, I've seen in one or two organizations that I worked, there is a lot of potential in women apprenticeship, but not many women understand. And lastly, which I feel is that if you can look at, how do you go local? I remember in one organization that we did, we actually walked into local people. We actually looked at understanding how you can train them. So we selected a few women, trained them in their house itself. And before they could really be ready to join an organization, ready at the basic level to come into the organization and then understand what it is. So post-COVID, especially, this really matters a lot. So go local, hire local, and go ahead with this kind of training, which will give a long-term benefit. I think these are some things that come top of my mind.
Sure. But Preeti, when you say that, a lot of workshop needs to be done and something which the CII and the Ministry of Skills have been doing it. There's also, a fact that come out that while people are aware, they do not understand. Is it also the need to simplify apprenticeship pact, which is more understandable by the consumers or by the adopters? Mr. Venkatesh, can I just request if you could mute yourself, because I think there's some noise, it's echoing at your end. Yeah.
So you're right, Sumit. There are 2-3 things. It has to be a combination. One, you're absolutely right. Building awareness in terms of the HR people itself is also one of the most important things. The business leaders themselves, I remember in my experience where I had to really push this whole thing in too many efforts really put in to show the business head that there is an advantage to this. Mm-hmm. But we have a long way to go. If you look at other global countries like UK region, especially, I'm one of those. I'm very fascinated with the UK model. The apprenticeship program is really building up so well there. We are too far behind as a country. But I wish it's picking up momentum. Apprenticeship program, government has given now clear guidelines, especially with this year's budget. There are very clear focus. There's a clear budget that is being invested in this area. Now it's up to the business leaders and, of course, groups like yours to bring the tie-up together so that the clear understanding of advantages and benefits are seen. I mean, if you remember our last conversation, we talked about where you kind of presented us the data about, looking at investing like 12,000 per person per month is going to give a benefit of 4 lakhs. I mean, if a business leader sees this, he is going to, put his eyes wide open and look at, seeing the benefits of it. And that's where, as I said, the CHR of an organization have to mandatorily, compulsorily look at putting this as part of their budgets. And I can give you examples, but in the interest of time, the Taj story that we all talk about is a clear example of that. Look at the retention. People stayed there for 6 years and 7 years. Compared to the high-flying guys who just come and leave the jobs for some lucrative offers, which is not as lucrative as one would want to see. But these are some marvelous examples which industry can learn and proceed with.
Absolutely, I think there's a lot of referencing, and I think as more stories get spoken about in public, which kind of motivates the other employers and organizations to adopt a plan.
You're right. See, the success story, the apprentice themselves also should see that, if I venture myself into training myself into this and the organization is willing to provide that support, I have to see success stories. I have to show them that, look, this is an individual who was like among your field, among your area, but look at where he is today or she is today. That kind of live examples are, of course, very few because the demand is high, the supply is low. Obviously, you wouldn't have too many success stories, but there are. And those success stories can be showcased in these forums that I talked of or the summits that we're talking about. it will actually start creating a wave of openness to this whole program.
Yes, that's right. Abhishek, what's your view? I mean, a very unique organization, and ITE is doing apprenticeship, which is very unique thing to do from the sector. And you've been one of those, I would say emerging companies who've adopted apprenticeship. What's your take? What do you think that we can do more for the ITES sector to come forward and, start adopting apprenticeships?
Sure. Sumit, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk to people today through your platform. Always a thrill to be talking about interesting topics and subjects. But very quickly, I think what Preeti touched upon was very, very important. And I think I kind of resonate wholeheartedly. The Taj story that she spoke about, and a couple of others, the 12,000 to a 4 lakh kind of an advantage that you have. Now, in the ITES space and in the tech space as well, I think we do not really have the, I would say, the challenge of the acceptance of this whole concept of apprenticeship, unlike other organizations or unlike other industries today. So, when we mooted this whole idea of taking apprentices and involving, apprentices, skilling them on the job, etc. I think it was met with absolutely no resistance. I mean, I think you call it a design or the way the tech industry works today, there is a far more acceptance to, newer ideas, and, people are kind of welcome to kind of really understand, how best they could kind of really get involved with a model like this. So, that way, I think it wasn't very, very difficult to kind of really go ahead and adopt the apprenticeship model. But coming back to the question that you had posted, Sumit, some time back in terms of, what is it that we can do to overcome and to increase the adoption? I mean, I think that there are some things that we can definitely do. And, the top of the mind recall would be some sort of a concerted communication campaign by both the government and the industry bodies. Now, I'm not saying it's not happening, but I think the frequency or the intensity or the severity, needs to kind of dramatically change, right? So my idea is that, if you have more concerted meetings and workshops which are organized, with all stakeholders, stakeholders like you, like team leads today, including, let's say, the CII and the FICCI, the sectoral associations, the local industry chambers. I think that kind of a concerted communication campaign, some sort of a cadence needs to be developed. Second, that I feel is, the publicity and the advertisements, which, where, you could use both the print and the electronic media. I mean, I think this is really a missing link at a time when at a time when Skill India itself has gone digital, right? I mean, you have it, you have it on websites today, right? So I think this is a missing link. I keep saying this, that, the spend on Incredible India, the campaign, has been nothing short of phenomenal, right? And something similar could be built for the apprenticeship, piece as well. Incredible Apprentices, all right? Incredible Apprenticeship. And, at a time when India has got more than 50% of its population below the age of 25, and, more than 65%, I was reading somewhere, who are below the age of 35. I think that's a gargantuan market, right? For apprentices today and apprenticeship. So I think that concerted, sort of a campaign, electronic as well as print campaigns, are kind of missing. Brand ambassadors are missing today. I haven't yet seen a brand ambassador for apprentices today in India. I think appointing of brand ambassadors for states and for local industrial clusters to act as facilitators and promoters. And, these brand ambassadors can be from large, medium, and small industries, right? But so long as you have some sort of a very concerted, framework, around this, I think that is also, missing. A couple of more things that come to my mind, Sumit, is, there are, I mean, while of course, the ease of apprenticeship has certainly happened, but I think we still are overly strict in terms of our regulations and compliances. It is a double-edged sword, and why I say it's a double-edged sword is, you know, we were talking the other day, right, where we said that, okay, there has been this imprisonment clause that has been repealed, right? So for non-compliance of apprenticeship, you know, stipulations. But, you know, while you have repealed it, but what have you done? You have replaced it with the penalty, right, in the form of, I think, 500 initially, now it's 1,000 rupees. Yeah. And I think that is very, it's less harsh on establishment. So the purpose may still not be served, right? As the industry may still have it as an easy option of abdicating their responsibilities. I mean, 1,000 rupees, you know. So I think, you know, industry has to be made to voluntarily comply with the program and be encouraged to take very proactive roles in promoting this program. I think this in a lot many ways goes to my first point to the industry tie-ups, right? So I think that's the penultimate point that I had. And the last point that comes to my mind is also perception issues, Sumit. So I think there is a perception issue. It is still not a preferred choice by the youth today, you know, as an avenue to make a career, right? As opposed to, let's say, higher education. So I think somewhere and somehow apprenticeships need to be linked with, you know, value education, okay, degree programs, integrate the academia, industry and the regulator, joint involvement of employers, skill universities, regulators when it comes to execution assessment, certification.
So I think, Abhishek, yeah, I think you're making a very valid point, and I think that's one of my questions which I want to talk about is the degree apprenticeship which the government has launched last year under the new education policy and how we're going to work on it. But I must say that you made some very interesting and valid points on the message and the messaging aspect to make it more popular, and also the aspect of making it more conducive. As I said that, you know, it's all about, is it all about understanding that, is it that complicated, which makes people, you know, which kind of, you know, which makes it hard for the people to understand the whole system of to execute it. So I think some very valid points taken here, Abhishek. And as the finance minister made some suggestions on the, you know, on making the apprenticeship, we hope that the apprenticeship act becomes more, you know, I would say industry friendly in terms of execution, because I think from the regulatory guidelines perspective, it is, but it's the execution which actually really matters. Mr. Venkatesh, what's your take on this? That how overcome this whole issue of, you know, the awareness and understanding and increase the adoption of apprenticeship?
Thank you, Sumit. So I would get back to some of the basic models of education, which I guess, you know, if you have to institutionalize and create a pull effect by the employer of this entire apprenticeship program, I guess Germany is a standing example, or UK could be another example, or China's model can also be studied. So I believe vocational education has to start based on the aptitude of students at a middle school level, and see how can we ensure children from 8th grade onwards who do not, you know, come into mainstream higher education and to look at an aptitude test, and organizations could get involved and see how can we bifurcate the education into mainstream higher education and vocational education, wherein the apprentice, you know, education starts from there. That's number one. But number two is, I would say that heads of institutions in the erstwhile good old days where the Apprentices Act was prevalent, where we used to take fitters, electricians, machinists, etc. on a particular ratio of a manufacturing organization, the principal of the vocational institution, typically those ITI institutes, used to be called the apprentice advisors. And those guys used to go across to, you know, manufacturing organizations and propagate the entire program, and also customize some of the supply of, you know, apprentice to these organizations, and also planning the entire related instruction theory classes according to the shifts.
Okay, Mr. Venkatesh, sorry here, but was it really being advisory role, or was it more like a policing role what they were playing?
I found in my experience there were not policing roles. So I used to work in Bangalore and Hosur. They never used to be policing roles. So we
Okay.
had really good apprentice advisors who helped us based on the requirement. And also it's upon the organization how much you take interest in terms of skilling people there and absorbing them. So that was the intent. So that's how it happened really well then. So that's the suggestions that I have, and it has to be done in a very aggressive manner. And staffing companies typically like where you work for, these companies can also target apprentice. For example, in a FMCG company, the kind of theory program and the kind of bridging it to the apprentice needs to be worked upon based on the requirement of timings, etc. So these are some models, I guess. If we are getting deeper into the way how they work, we will be able to institutionalize through a pull effect rather than a push effect.
Great. So I think the whole aspect of the role of an apprenticeship advisor, being an advocate, and how does he go and promote apprenticeship could possibly, needs to be re-looked at, where they can facilitate and also guide and handhold the organizations to implement apprenticeship, and obviously clear all the doubts and the myths, as Abhishek also mentioned, there are certain myths which continue to exist, can be addressed through them. I think some wonderful thoughts coming in from there. Now let's move to the reports also suggested that it is the the large enterprises which continue to engage with apprenticeship, but the medium and the smaller enterprises have kind of kept themselves away. The fact that NAPS program, the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme, was brought into picture was that how to encourage the sector, the SME sector, to take apprenticeships. It's still not picked up. So what do you think, which is stopping the SMEs to engage with apprenticeship, because they are the growth drivers for the economy and are the actually creator for talent? So why there's still been so reluctance and pushback from the SME sector, and what can be done or should be done to encourage them to take up apprenticeships? So Abhishek, maybe you would want to go first on this.
Yeah. So, Sumit, I don't know what's the definition of a large enterprise, but I would say we are a medium-sized, or we are a small enterprise compared to the really large organizations, and we have about 9,000 people. But no, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that there are large organizations, and how do you kind of really define large? But you're right when you say that smaller organizations typically have not been able to understand or maybe leverage the apprentice model. We've been able to leverage the NAPS model very effectively. But yes, Sumit, there is an assumption amongst smaller businesses, and my discussions that, and I keep discussing about these things with in my HR fraternity, in my HR community, and I think there is an assumption amongst smaller businesses about apprentices taking time to get to speed. Okay, one. And two, there are a lot of people who still do not know that this is something that they could leverage. Now, again, I think these are the two reasons why, there is maybe a relatively slower adoption. But I think that trend is changing now, Sumit. So, I think until now, apprentices were associated with manufacturing, production. Yeah. Today, I think with most of the business traction happening around, let us say, startups today, e-commerce, small tech firms, all of these industries are hungry for manpower, right? I mean, these are industries that are staring at a 30-35% manpower churn. And at the same time, they are looking at seamless business continuity. So when you have that kind of a manpower churn, replacements, when you have a 30%, 35% kind of an attrition, and you would like to, which means that you are literally building a new organization every 3 years. Okay. There is always a keenness to understand how one could very quickly staff and support businesses. So I think companies now are looking at all different avenues, including NAPS, including the apprenticeship schemes that are available today. And also what used to be something associated with, a machinist or a mechanic kind of a role has now successfully grown into roles like, verification and validation, data entry, mobility, I mean, we hire a lot of people under NAP scheme who help us with back office roles, verification and validation roles, KYC roles, etc. So industries like ITES, pharma, e-commerce. I mean, I think these are all companies that are now slowly warming up to the apprenticeship models. I think the smaller companies are going for apprentices, albeit their acceptance could be always further enhanced. But yes, I mean, while I say that, it's a little, I would say, it's a little uncanny, when you are in a forum and you realize that people who are the custodians of manpower themselves do not have knowledge that something like this exists today. So I think it's a communication and the fact that it is available and seamless too, as compared to what it used to be 10, 15 years back. That needs to be, that whole communication machinery needs to be enhanced.
Sure. Mr. Venkat, is building on what Abhishek just mentioned, that still the lack of awareness and understanding which has kept them, the medium small enterprise away. I mean, yes, they want to get into it. Maybe it's slowly right now, in times to come, it can pick up. But is it just that the lack of understanding, or is it also to do with the whole process of the structured training, which can come up to be a little expensive for them, or is the scare of being questioned by the authorities? What do you think could be the possible reasons for the MSMEs to keep away, and how they can come forward in engaging apprenticeship?
Yeah, as I said earlier, the pull effect is very, very important. So if there can be a placement coordinator, awareness is very important today. To that extent, the number of sector skill councils which are available across whatever skill what Abhishek was talking about is one example of those skills still that needs to be yet institutionalized and socialized, and people need to know. So that's one awareness that some of the relevant SMEs need to know about what are the skills that are available. And to that extent, if you want to call an apprentice advisor as a placement coordinator of a particular institute, which is capable of supplying such skills, those placement coordinators need to play a very important role to go and study the MSME, or SME organizations' requirement of manpower, and what are the challenges that they face, and what are the kind of capability or capacity to pay that they have. So those things need to be studied, and that's how a SME organization needs to be engaged first. So a role that needs to be played by an institute which is capable of supplying a particular skilled manpower, that needs to play an important role, rather than one saying that the government organization should do this. So that's why I feel that this needs to be through a PPP program, private public partnership program, and also vocational education institutes which are training these students and which are capable of supplying these apprentices need to play a very key role in terms of educating the SMEs by customizing and understanding their specific issues.
Okay. Got that. Preeti, what do you have to say on this? One of the challenges, what I hear is not just, it is unique to, it's unique to all kind of sizes of the enterprises, is on the hiring of apprentices, which becomes a challenge. And that's possibly one of the reasons where the SMEs have kind of stayed away. So what's your take and any other views on that?
So Sumit, I think for me, as I say, medium-term organizations primarily do not, they're like Abhishek rightly talked, or Venkatesh talked about the fact in terms of the HR people themselves being aware. The other perspective of HR people having a perception of whether apprenticeship program is useful or not. That's the I would say the subjective part of it. But the business leaders primarily do not want to look at it, because for a medium-term company, the P&L really is very low. So their investments in terms of realizing that if I invest now, I'm going to get results much later, where these business leaders typically want results like yesterday. Investment and cost really becomes a very, very crucial aspect in terms of investing themselves in an apprenticeship program. However, having said that, if these organizations can actually leverage, see, the apprehension that business leader typically would have is that, oh, I don't need to bring them on my rolls. The one good thing that government did, I think, a couple of years back, 2-3 years back, is that this mandate of 2.5%, which was essentially earlier skill based, they opened it up as a common thing. So I think that one big change was adding advantage. Many medium term companies don't understand that. So if they can opt and bring that kind of awareness, that's one way to look at it. The other thing is absolutely where they could do tie-ups. They could tie up with companies like yours or smaller NGOs, or there are some very good skill development institutions where they could tie up and train them. I remember in one of the, even tie up with universities and colleges, where I remember in one of the organizations where we did is, we went to the academician, we told them that the last year of the education, we would want to compulsorily apprentice them. And we kind of invested in them. So they were on the college. They would get the normal stipend that government had, is as per the norms. And we invested their entire training in their last year of college. So by the time they were onboarded, they probably needed just 60 days of basic training in terms of making them understand the equipment, and that worked. But as an organization, because we had this need and we had to go and make that investment, we went ahead and did it. How many organizations would be voluntarily willing to do that? I have my own doubts. So some of these things, if organizations can start looking at building, it will not only enhance our education system, but it will also enhance the skill development, which is also an issue in the country today. That's my bit on it.
So I think all of you have been, talking about, whether it was Mr. Venkatesh or Abhishek, you, or, Preeti, you also just mentioned about the role of the academics. I remember, just a while back, Venkat just mentioned about that how it needs to be built in right at the nascent stage of the education. Where Abhishek mentioned that about the participation of the skills universities, or make it more aspirational by making that more value added stuff in the form of a degree. So, so there is definitely a need of the academic participation. What you feel can make the apprenticeship grow, in faster, probably. My question to you, all of you, is that last year, when the new education policy 2020 was announced, the UGC came up with the new guidelines for degree apprenticeship, which is credit-based, a program where you get credits for both on-the-job and off-the-job learning that you do. But it needs an active participation of the employers, which means that it has to be in a tripartite, arrangement between the employer and the academia and the apprentice. How willing would the corporates be to engage with an academics or a university to implement degree apprenticeships? Mr. Venkat, if you're there, would you want to take up this first?
Sumit, there is some kind of a noise out here, so I'm not able to hear you very clearly. Okay. Just and I'll come back to you on this.
Sure. Abhishek, what's your take on this then?
Yeah. So,
sorry, he got disconnected, seems like. Okay, Preeti, would you want to take this?
Yeah. So you're right. The whole awareness that you talked of, Sumit, in terms of the tie-up with colleges and how open industries will be more than happy to do it. I can tell you from my own experience of having worked for so many organizations, there is this dire need. There is absolutely a need to, build these kids from the ground. And it has to be both ways. The apprentices themselves also need to be aware. There is a lot of perception among them as well, that, just do this much and we are good. The aspiration of showing them a long-term career, aspiration of showing them success stories, will have a buy-in from them. At the same time, industries will be more than happy to go ahead and invest, but there have to be forums. There have to be, like I said, the summit that I talked of. If government also has, the perception among the government is that industry has to own this. If you hear any of our, people talking about this whole thing, the perception is that industry has to own it and industry has to drive it. Industry will be more than happy to do it. Companies will be more than happy to do it, provided the link is established. You look at the government website that they have created, it takes hell lot of time to even upload, data on apprentice there.
That's
I mean,
right.
while we talk about digital thing, it takes a cumbersome time and process to just upload that information. Now, how do you bring this? How can you simplify it? How can you ease this? Is where I expect the government to be involved. And two, the absolute have, I mean, like what Abhishek talked, the manpower churn is so much, the need is there. As I said, the demand is there, the supply is low. And how can these three entities, the government body, the company, and of course institutions like yours and the apprentice themselves, how can all these four entities come together to build this for the larger benefit of the country? That's how I see it.
Sure. I think absolutely makes sense, Preeti. Abhishek, yes, we want to hear your views on it. That will corporates be willing to work in a tripartite and engage with the academics or the academia for doing the degree apprenticeships?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, my sense has been that, there has been, for people who are aware of the apprenticeship model that exists today, there's been a general buy-in on the entire model. And I think organizations and corporates are willing to kind of invest. Preeti spoke about it, right? The 12,000 to a 4 lakh advantage. And I am kind of repeating that again out here. I think that's the, that's the language that all of us understand today.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no reason why organizations will not want to really invest in something like this. But again, I echo that, the sentiment around the fact that while you talk about Skill India and everything is, everything has a website today, right? There is not a single government scheme that is not on the internet today, but it is still cumbersome. I mean, for people who have made it, it is nothing less than rocket science. And I can tell you that, Sumit, it is really difficult to navigate through some of those websites. We need to make it simple, for organizations to be accepting of the operational, issues that kind of come up with these models. Otherwise, the buy-in is there, Sumit. I mean, we all want to do it. And I can talk, I'm sure Preeti can and Venkatesh also can talk on behalf of our HR fraternity as well, that the buy-in is there for people who understand this. And for people who do not, obviously that's, once they know, they kind of really, would want to explore more. But post that intent, when you put that intent into action, it is really cumbersome. It's an administrative problem.
I think that's what needs to be tackled, to look at all the challenges which are associated. While there is an intent, there is a guidelines.
Yeah.
Level execution, it does become a challenge. And we hope that the new education policy takes the cognizance of all these facts, that while executing it, it needs to set the rules very simple to be successful. If there are any questions for the panelists, please do put it in the question box. We're going to take it post the whole session ends. Venkat, what's your take on it? How can the industry, academia, and the apprentices work together in the tripartite arrangement to do the degree apprenticeships? Venkat, can you hear me? Mr. Venkatesh, are you there?
He's there, but I think he's not able to hear. Maybe someone can just chat and send him a message.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so while of course that, while we do that, one of the other things that, very interesting, observation from my side has been that apprentice as a terminology, has been associated with, with the shop floor. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as I was talking about the machinist and the mechanics, right? So the apprentice typically, even if you ask folks who have not dabbled or who don't have the, let's say, a lot of knowledge on this subject, the moment you say apprentice, the first thing that comes to your mind is, all right, shop floor.
Shop floor.
A fitter or maybe somebody, okay, who's going to be learning the tricks of the trade, okay. So, when you say that apprentices for ITES, apprentices in the tech space, apprentices for IT companies, there is often a sense of bewilderment in terms of, whether, we are really saying the right things. Are we hearing the right thing? Apprentice really for the tech space as well? Do you have people who can be that skilled and be part of apprenticeship model as well? And that brings me back to the communication and perception, right? I mean, I think communication, is something that needs to be dealt with at a much more, I would say, intensive level. I was talking about the Incredible India campaign. I think somewhere this incredible apprenticeship campaign needs to be also developed. And, for all of us to kind of really get an understanding of how holistic this entire program is in terms of its coverage. I think people are not aware of it still.
Yeah, I think you are very rightly pointed out that while it's like a lot of myths associated with it. You only associate with those factory kind of job roles for apprenticeship because that's how it emerged as. But
yeah,
when we see that there are a lot of roles, and specifically look at your organization, Abhishek, there are a lot of innovation in terms of, I would say, the newness in the kind of job roles where the people are doing apprenticeship, and that's just one of them. Fintech, e-com, edutech. I think you name it today, where the apprentices are possible. I'm not sure. I think there's some problem at Mr. Venkatesh's side, so we'll see how quickly he can join us back so we can continue discussion with him. But yeah, so I think coming to my next question is that all the statistics and the data points suggest that there's an upward trend in the apprenticeships in the terms of hiring. I mean, even whether we look at our own statistics or the statistics which has been released by NSDC suggests that there has been an uptake in the apprenticeship hiring. Now, is it because it is just a fad because people went to local hiring and local training, talent development, because of the reverse migration that happened and there was no people available, so they thought let's do it now? Or do you think that it's going to be more of a trend than a fad to stay on, and we can see the potential growth in the apprenticeship headcount?
So, Sumit, the way I see it is, it is slow. The speed is really slow. It'll pick up, no doubt. The way I think things are, and the fact that the government is investing huge budgets in this whole scheme, it'll pick up. But the speed would be very slow. As unlike when I see, countries across the globe, the pace with which we are moving today, as you recall, I mean, our last discussion, we talked about some 4% as the number of apprentice population being available while the demand is very high. So, it will pick up. Industry will eventually look at, and post-COVID, the scenario is much more deeper because last 1 year, people have not made profits as they would want. Government themselves, our GDP is still not reaching to that level. So we are still that way far behind. And with COVID, hitting us, people will be focused more on lowering costs. This is, of course, one best way to look at it from a cost point of view. But speed, the support from the government, the way the whole entities that I talked about connecting, it'll take some time. It's not going to be as quick as I would see other countries.
But you do see it's going to be an upward trend only, maybe moving in a slow pace, but
it will move. Of course, yes, it will move.
Okay.
That's something that I strongly think.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is no reason why it should not move ahead. I mean, see, fundamentally the concept is great, right? So why shouldn't it move ahead? The only reason why it will not move ahead the way or at the pace at which we would want to kind of have it move ahead is the administrative issues. Okay. But conceptually, I think it's a great model. Companies are warming up to it. I'll give you an example. Let us say at the, and I'm using these words very loosely at the moment, okay? Not the actual definition, but let's say at the semi-skilled to a skilled, at the cusp of semi-skilled to a skilled level, okay? The number of opportunities / roles, new roles that have emerged, okay, is amazing. I mean, especially in the business process outsourcing, area. Up till now, if you were to ask anyone about BPO, the first thing that comes to your mind is a call center. Okay, that is what people identify BPOs with. Okay, you go, you make calls, you take calls. Okay, but I'll give you an example. Let's say if you were to apply for a loan today, okay, and while the process is all online and you will go to, let's say, any bank's website, the bank will say, all right, look at your eligibility, figure, put in some inputs, and they tell you, okay, you are eligible for this kind of a loan. You can apply online, but still the last mile is going to be a physical file. So somebody's going to come to your house. Somebody's going to validate your documents. Somebody's going to be telling you, yahan pe sign kijiye, yahan sign kijiye. All right. That is still, part of the entire, let's say, process, okay, that banks follow today. Who's going to be doing that? So today banks are saying that, listen, my job is to run banks, okay? My job is to disburse the loan. My job is not to really verify and validate, okay? Somebody's got to do it for me, okay? So, from that perspective, or for that matter, we all do shopping online today, Amazon. There is something called KYC, right? So you go online and you figure it out. Ola, Ola says, okay, validate your KYC or complete your KYC. Uber asks you to do that. But Uber is not in the job to kind of really do KYC, right? Uber is in the job to transport you from one point to the other point. So who does all of that? Until about 10 years back, these roles never existed. Okay. So that entire verification, Aadhaar, let us say Aadhaar, okay, today, if you have to renew your Aadhaar, if you have to renew your child's Aadhaar from 5 years to 10 years to 15 years or whatever, all right, you upload the documents, but somebody has got to validate it at the back end, right? And that is not Aadhaar. It is somebody who's going to be doing it for Aadhaar, right? So these roles never existed earlier. As we kind of digitize ourselves, completely, a lot of new roles that never existed are going to come into foray.
Absolutely.
Who's going to be doing all that? Somebody. I mean, we'll have to get people, right? So there is no reason why apprenticeship, NAPS, NEEM. I mean, these are programs that will not succeed. They will succeed. Today, I think we are kind of going at a subsonic speed. We need to kind of really, move at a supersonic speed, and there are tons of examples of how other countries have emulated some great models. Germany is one, and UK. I think Venkatesh was talking about the UK. No, I think Preeti was talking about the UK model. So I think these are great countries to kind of really follow their apprenticeship models. I think we'll get there.
Great. So you definitely feel that the skilling is going to change some job roles, some new job roles coming in that need skilled people, and what better way but to get those skills built up. Great. Absolutely. I think it's wonderful to speak to both of you. We've got some questions coming in, and I think we'll spend the next 10 minutes in just taking those questions and answer, and get your views on that.
Okay. So
sorry, yeah. You're saying something, Abhishek?
Oh, so are we taking questions, Sumit? Because there's a question for me. Oh, okay. All right.
The first question, actually, that's for you. Which says that you mentioned about the system being a little cumbersome. What would be your recommendation to make it more simpler?
Yeah. So, all right. So let me flip it a little and let me expand the question a little. What would be my recommendations typically, in terms of the apprenticeship model and the Apprentices Act today? Three things that I would like to kind of really recommend. One is higher accountability. Now, what do I mean when I say higher accountability? So in India, there is a higher dropout rate than enrollment rate. Okay, now I was reading somebody's white paper, which was on the skill development in India 2015. And I think there, the author had very, very nicely elaborated on the fact that the dropout rates are much higher than enrollment rates. And the net enrollment in vocational courses in India is about, I think, 5.5 million per year compared to 90 million in China and I think some 12 million in the US. just about 2% of Indian workers, this is what I recollect, are formally skilled. Okay. And, further, there was a study by, I think, FICCI in 2015, which identified some factors responsible for higher unemployment, along with, stagnant skill development in the country. And these include, low literacy levels, formally skilled workforce being less than 3% of the total workforce, etc. Inadequate training, capacities, higher level of unemployment amongst the highly educated individuals, etc. So the reality, despite going gung-ho about Skill India, is very different, right? So, and this raises a question, then and therefore regarding the adequacy and accountability of the various schemes that are currently being implemented. So one recommendation is, how do we, is to kind of really build a higher accountability, okay? The second is, there are, per my, knowledge, there are many schemes today that are running in tandem, okay? So, there are several center-driven schemes, there are several state-driven schemes. Schemes are implemented at both the levels. There is no uniformity in implementation mechanism. So, I think somewhere these schemes have to kind of run in tandem and in some sense, seamlessness. Third is, of course, I take it, from what Preeti said a while back, learning from countries that have successfully implemented the apprenticeship system. So let's take a look at the German model of apprenticeship system. I mean, the fundamental reason for the success in Germany is that it's based on a combo, I think, of formal education along with the real-time experience in the workplace, right? So in that system, individuals can enroll themselves for one of those. I think they have some 365 apprenticeship, occupations where, skills and theory are imparted. And, as part of this dual education course, students are trained in a company for some days in a week, where a company is responsible for ensuring that students get standard quantity of training set down in the training description. So I think, these learning from these countries could be, very, very valuable to us. So these are the three things: higher accountability, several schemes running in tandem, and learning from countries. Yes. Making it simple online, I think, is more of an operational, thing. I mean, you can always make it simple. All right. But I think these are the three bigger, I would say, recommendations that I would have.
Okay. What about, I think the infrastructure upgrade, that will be more important. What I feel is, in executing it at the ground level execution, for people to look at how simple it becomes to upload the basic matters, which are required probably, Preeti, anything you would like to add to this? Because there's another question for you, specifically for you.
I saw that. So I in fact went through those questions. I think very interesting questions. It's good to see that the participants are equally keen on this whole program, which is actually a very, very nice feel that I get, having seen in the past what Abhishek really talked about, perception. So it's a good example of showing that the perception is changing. So I will combine a few questions, because there's a question related to reskilling. There's a question related to why would somebody, want to invest if there are some smart kids on the play? Why would anybody want to invest? I mean, and of course, the last question really interested me, because that's exactly where I started when we talked about, in fact, when we started this discussion. So simple answers in terms of reskilling. It's simple. Off-campus hiring is the best way to go back and get them reskilled. I don't see a reason why the apprentice, the law doesn't permit, but you can still always have them, because they're in whichever way, like what Abhishek talked about, being skilled and multi-skilled and semi-skilled and so on and so forth. They are skilled somewhere. May not be at the highest level, but that doesn't stop them from bringing. Cost is a big factor for the answer question that, why would anybody? I mean, obviously, people will want to look at their costs and go for apprenticeship, because it anyway fructifies a larger benefit in future. And the last question, which was, I think, very interesting, is that, what is the best way? Should a student go the stipend route, or should a student go? In my personal view, it's always best to go along with graduation, a stipend-based apprenticeship program. And that's exactly what UK or Germany did. I mean, and that's exactly what a couple of years back I did in one of the organizations where I went to a college and said, we will hire your students in the last year, and we gave them a stipend, and it worked. But what happens there, the biggest benefit is the exposure that they get as coming from a basic naive college mood to a corporate mood. I mean, I can tell you the apprentice, we invest 1 week in them, just training them on grooming etiquettes and what's corporate culture. So these guys don't know that. I mean, when they start off in college, it's all interesting college mood. So we invested in them. We did the last year college training on them, and they were role ready by the time they were, clearing their diploma or graduation, as we want to say it. And they were role ready. So in my personal view, I would be very happy if somebody, let's say I'm interviewing, and he or she showcases me that, last 1 year, this is what I have done. And I would be more than happy to get that person on board instead of someone else. That's my bit. I hope it has answered.
No, of course, definitely. So I think what you made a very valid point. You really don't have to get into apprenticeship to do this reskilling. I think 2 years back, when the whole technology world was changing, is where TCS and Infosys of the world, they took over the responsibility of reskilling their 1 lakh employees. I mean, it was all about
that's like you quoted. I didn't want to name
campus, but off campus.
Right, Sumit. In fact, I didn't want to quote Infosys, but that's where I was a part of that organization, and that's exactly what we did in that year. So
yes.
Totally resonate with you.
So Abhishek, do you want to say that the question which is the NASSCOM not promoting apprenticeship program to BPOs? I don't kind of agree to this statement, because I'm sure there's a lot of effort which is made by NASSCOM, by the Sector Skill Council in doing it. Would you want to clarify on this particular I would not take it as a question, but it's like a statement. Do you want to clarify on that?
Yeah, I think it's not the right statement. NASSCOM, just because NASSCOM may not have spoken about it, does not mean that it doesn't promote it. And I have not been following NASSCOM,
Sure.
in the recent past, so I do not know.
Sure. So I think I will then pick it up, that question, and I would say that that's not a correct statement to make.
I will add a bit in that. In this whole thing, this expectation that NASSCOM should be doing, first of all, is totally irrelevant in my view. There are different independent bodies, including NASSCOM. You have NSR, you have, NETAP, NAPS, what not you have. So system is available today to provide that kind of aspects and growth. It's also both ways. It's not always one way that, everything has to be NASSCOM driven, or just because NASSCOM carries a larger brand.
Sure. No, I agree with you. But having said that, I would say it's not really unfair to make the statement that why NASSCOM is not promoting. I think NASSCOM is definitely involved in the skilling, in understanding the needs of the industry, preempting the needs, and also skilling and doing apprenticeship program, because there are workshops which have been organized by NASSCOM. So just to clarify to this particular question, I think there are many more questions, which are here, but we kind of stop here because we are kind of coming to the end of our time. Thank you so much, both of you. I wish Venkat would have continued with us as well. I think it was very good ideas, very valid, opinions coming from all three of you in stating how we can scale up the apprenticeship in our country. And we hope we get, your views passed on to the right audience, which can make an impact and make apprenticeship more simplified. And the whole aspect of ease of doing apprenticeship, has been established. Thank you.